thank you very much. And I think, as you can tell from my friend, the Foreign Minister, we covered the waterfront. And it's a large waterfront indeed. And that speaks to the fact that for the United States and Egypt, more than ever, there is so much that we're doing together and so much that we both benefit from the fact that we're doing it together. I want to thank you, my friend, and also thank President el-Sisi for the very warm welcome here in Cairo, but also just for the very high quality of the exchanges that we've had today, both with the President, with my colleagues, with our strategic dialogue partners. We had this opportunity today to kick off the strategic dialogue, and that really underscores the commitment that both of our countries have to work to continuously strengthen what's been a century-long relationship and strengthen it in a way that's focused on delivering for our people. That's what it's all about. And I really, to you, Badr, want to thank you and thank your entire team for hosting this dialogue and for getting it off to a very good start. We made progress on many of our priorities today, including Egypt's development, its growth, its governance. And I'm announcing $129 million in new funding to support these efforts, from providing hundreds of higher education scholarships to encouraging entrepreneurship among young people to improving rural health. Together, we are enhancing economic cooperation. We're advancing broad-based opportunity for Egyptians and Americans. We're helping women-owned small businesses get greater access to financing. We're expanding foreign direct investment beyond the more than 1,000 American companies already present in Egypt. The United States is supporting Egypt as it continues to reform its economy to become even more dynamic, even more competitive. In Washington, earlier this month, we hosted the second U.S.-Egypt Joint Economic Commission to grow our economic cooperation. For instance, making progress on a bilateral agreement that will help unlock greater private sector participation and investment here in Egypt. Next month, the United States Trade Representative will host talks between our countries to identify additional steps, like fostering an open and predictable trade environment that will further boost commercial ties and help Egypt attract more trade and more investment. Building on Egypt's leadership on climate and its hosting of COP27, our two countries are continuing to accelerate the clean energy transition. A team from the United States International Development Finance Corporation will be here later this week looking at green hydrogen projects, visiting a solar park near Aswan, as we work to harness Egypt's tremendous potential for renewable technologies. And as the Foreign Minister noted, President el-Sisi and I also discussed the existential nature of Egypt's growing water needs and the importance of the Nile to the Egyptian people. We're also investing together in education, and maybe this is one of the most important things that we're doing for the future of our people, for the future of our countries, and for the connections between our countries. These investments are really essential to fully unleashing Egypt's potential. The Education and Cultural Working Group that we launched today will help establish 9 new state-of-the-art multidisciplinary labs at STEM high schools that the United States has stood up in Egypt. We'll also support 19 career centers covering nearly every Egyptian public and national university so that young Egyptians can prepare for and get the jobs of the future. A little bit later today, we have representatives of 3 United States universities who will sign agreements to open international campuses here in Egypt, adding to 2 projects that are already underway, giving Egyptian students the chance to receive an American education here in Egypt. We'll also strengthen our work to preserve Egypt's archaeological heritage, including a new effort to list the Great Temple of Abydos as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, growing the tourism sector that contributes so much to Egypt's economy. The United States welcomes steps that Egypt has taken this past year on human rights, releasing detainees, advancing efforts to reform pretrial detention, resolving cases involving travel bans and asset freezes for NGO employees. And as the Foreign Minister said, these are steps that Egypt is taking because it's in Egypt's interest to do so. We both acknowledge additional steps that Egypt intends to take, including adopting and implementing penal code reforms, continuing to pardon and release prisoners, detainees, and ensuring that journalists, human rights defenders, and all Egyptians can voice any disagreements freely. There's strong bipartisan interest in the United States Congress to seeing Egypt continue to make this progress, and respecting and safeguarding fundamental freedoms can only strengthen the partnership between our countries and, as the Foreign Minister himself says, benefit the Egyptian people. That's why Egypt is engaging in this course. We discussed how we can enhance long-standing security cooperation, whether that's Egypt's major peacekeeping contributions in places like South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or, as the Minister mentioned, the fight against ISIS and other extremists in the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt continues to be an indispensable partner in pursuing a ceasefire in Gaza, one that brings the hostages home, that relieves the suffering of the people of Gaza, and creates the foundation for an enduring peace. I thank the President and the Foreign Minister and other colleagues for Egypt's commitment to this work, and we discussed the importance of getting this deal across the finish line, something we'll continue to pursue along with our Qatari counterparts. We all know that a ceasefire is the best chance to tackle the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, to address the risks to regional stability, risks that I know are felt viscerally here in Egypt. In particular, the Houthis' continued attacks on global commerce in the Red Sea, aided and abetted by Iran, are reducing traffic in the Suez Canal, and that's cost Egypt a projected $5 billion in lost revenue. Egypt has been instrumental in addressing the conflict in Sudan, the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Along with our diplomatic partners, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Switzerland, the African Union, the United Nations, and others, we made progress in Switzerland last month, opening new crossings to allow humanitarian assistance to get to people who need it, and getting the Rapid Support Forces to agree to a code of conduct for its fighters. That progress, however, is now threatened by a new RSF offensive in Al-Fasher, already resulting in the deaths and displacement of thousands of vulnerable people. The RSF must take every step to protect the lives of innocents and respect its commitment to protect civilians. The Sudanese armed forces have to halt indiscriminate bombing. Both must come together and come to the table to agree on implementing agreements that were reached in Jeddah and to stop this brutal war. Next week at the UN General Assembly in New York, I'll be bringing together our partners to align around the next steps to expand humanitarian access, to protect civilians, and to push for a cessation of hostilities. The United States is grateful for Egypt's continued partnership and leadership in this work, as well, I have to say, for the generosity of the Egyptian people, welcoming hundreds of thousands of Sudanese refugees. We'll also continue to consult with Egypt on bringing greater stability to Libya, including supporting the UN and its efforts to shore up the central bank and work toward a longer-term political settlement. So, as you've heard from both of us, these are some, not all, of the subjects that we discussed today. And I think, again, at this challenging moment, the importance of our partnership, the partnership between Egypt and the United States, is on full display. And that's why today's dialogue is so important and timely, reminding not only what's at stake, but also what's possible for our people and people throughout the region. So with regard to Lebanon, the United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents, and we're still gathering the information and gathering the facts. Broadly speaking, we've been very clear, and we remain very clear, about the importance of all parties avoiding any steps that could further escalate the conflict that we're trying to resolve in Gaza, to see it spread to other fronts. It's clearly not in the interest of anyone involved to see that happen, and that's why, again, it's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict. We're focused on getting this ceasefire over the finish line. That would also, I think, materially improve the prospects of actually defusing the situation in northern Israel and southern Lebanon, particularly creating an environment in which people have the confidence to return to their homes, the tens of thousands of displaced people in Israel as well as in southern Lebanon. Getting the ceasefire would facilitate getting to that kind of agreement, and that's clearly the best path forward for everyone involved. So, again, it's imperative that everyone avoid taking steps that could further escalate or spread the conflict.
Leon Bruno from AFP.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for your hospitality, Prime Minister. Mr. Secretary, I'd like to, I'll try to be short for once. I'm sure you'll be happy about that. In your meetings today, did you submit any new ideas to bridge the remaining gaps to get to that elusive ceasefire in Gaza? And what are your expectations now? And also, this is your 10th trip to the region since October 7, and you have always gone to Israel, but you won't be going this time. So why is that? Is it because of tensions with the government of Israel? And to you, Foreign Minister, one of the issues, remaining sticking points, if you will, according to U.S. officials, is this issue of Israeli presence in the Philadelphia corridor. Would you, Egypt, of course, accept any extended Israeli presence in the corridor or not? Is that a definitive no? Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. So, first, with regard to the travel here, this trip was focused on the strategic dialogue between the United States and Egypt. This is something that we were determined to do, and that I was determined at the President's direction to help launch, and I'm very glad we had an opportunity to do that. Of course, it also comes at a time when we're working as closely as possible on getting the ceasefire. And so we had a detailed conversation with President al-Sisi, as well as with senior colleagues from the Egyptian government, working directly on the ceasefire about the status of these efforts and the way forward. And look, what I can tell you is this, and as we've said before, we've made a tremendous amount of progress over the last month and a half. There are, I think, in the agreement, 18 paragraphs. 15 of them are agreed, but the remaining issues need to be resolved. We put forward with the Egyptians and the Qataris ideas for resolving them. The bottom line is this: their resolution is less a question of substance and more a question of political will. And for both parties, it's important to demonstrate that political will to get this agreement concluded. For Israel, at this point, just last week, the IDF announced that the Rafah brigades had been dismantled. Hamas is not in a position to repeat the horrific attacks of October 7th. Concluding a ceasefire agreement would bring the hostages home, and, as I mentioned a moment ago, would also open important prospects for resolving other high-tension areas, including in northern Israel and southern Lebanon with Hezbollah, the Red Sea, and other places, all of which is in Israel's interest, as well as opening up opportunities to move in a very different direction in terms of strengthening Israel's security and place in the region far into the future. For Hamas, it can't continue not only to hold hostages, but to hold all of the people of Gaza hostage. Getting to the ceasefire would result in a totally different environment for the people of Gaza, ending the conflict for an initial period and one we would work to make enduring, resulting in an immediate, massive infusion of humanitarian assistance for people who desperately need it, and clearly bettering the lives of people that they purport to represent. So the most important thing in this moment is seeing a demonstration of political will to finally conclude this agreement. And that's what we discussed. We also discussed in some detail what would be necessary arrangements if an agreement is finally reached in terms of the so-called day after. What happens in Gaza in terms of its governance, its security, its reconstruction. And here as well, Egypt is and will be a critical partner, and I think we had a very useful conversation about that today as well. So, Kylie, we're still gathering information. We're still gathering the facts. I can't tell you in this moment what impact this will have. I certainly can't speak to what impact it might have on Hezbollah and its operations. That would demand other expertise, and again, it's also necessary to fully understand what's happened, and we're still in the process of doing that. One of the hallmarks, if that's the right word, of this effort, this extensive effort by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar to get to a ceasefire, to be the mediators, and to get it across the finish line. One of the hallmarks has been that it's a complicated process, and even the communications involved are complicated for obvious reasons, so things take time. And time and again, we've seen that in the intervening time, you might have an event, an incident, something that makes the process more difficult, that threatens to slow it, stop it, derail it. And anything of that nature, by definition, is probably not good in terms of achieving the result that we want, which is the ceasefire. Just a few weeks ago, we had just had a very productive session on trying to finalize one of the big outstanding issues, which deals broadly with the release of hostages and prisoners, the ratios, the schedule, and so forth. And there had been a very, very good discussion of that between the mediators and the parties. And then, 48 hours later, Hamas executed 6 hostages, including an American, Hersh Goldberg, Poland. So that, of course, had an impact on the progress that we were making. But I come back to what I think we both said in terms of where we are now, which is that there are important but discrete issues that need to be resolved. We've put forward different ideas for how to resolve them. They are clearly resolvable. But the key ingredient to getting a resolution of these outstanding issues is political will. That's what we're both looking for going forward. That's what's so imperative if we're going to get the ceasefire across the finish line.
On the table, you have to see political will demonstrated?
No, we put our ideas on the table. And again, there's a process in going back and forth, getting reactions, getting responses, or sometimes not getting responses. But I think I don't want to speak for my friend, but I think as we see it, what's missing in this moment to get this across the finish line is clear political will. If that will is present, this agreement gets done. If this agreement gets done, it has immediate and incredible benefits for everyone involved, starting with the hostages coming home and the people in Gaza getting immediate relief, and then opening much broader prospects for peace, for security, not only in Gaza but throughout the region. So the interests, I believe, are clear. And now the question is getting that final bit of political will to get this done and get us all moving forward. Thank you very much.